Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to our presentation today entitled Actualizing the Digital Library with Interactive Student Learning and Engagement Projects. My name is James Murphy. I'm a subject librarian at the University of Calgary, and I'm here with my two colleagues today.
I'm Mark Stockel. I'm the librarian for music, dance, drama, and foreign languages at the University of Calgary.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex Zelisowskis, and I'm the librarian for art, gender studies, and museum studies at the University of Calgary. And before we begin, we would just like to gratefully acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. And we'd also like to acknowledge that the City of Calgary is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3.
So the starting question for this presentation is all about how libraries can activate their digital collections and services in new ways to engage with their users. We're all located at the Taylor Family Digital Library, and so we think about this quite a bit. And our presentation is going to talk about how we used a particular program to do this in a number of ways. There are three examples we're going to talk about today, including virtual 360 library tours, virtual library exhibitions, and an interactive library orientation. All of these projects have been underway over the last couple of years, and we've had some really interesting results, so we look forward to sharing them with you today. A little bit of background on these projects. And the timeline of how they came to be is we started in spring 2020, shortly after the pandemic started, in using a newly formed undergraduate support team, and they brainstormed new ways to engage with students virtually. So in the summer, we subscribed to a platform known as ThingLink, which allowed us to create different types of digital products. And our first project was to do 360 virtual library tours. So we took captures and images of all our library locations and spaces and put those together and had them ready to go for fall. After September and the new school year started, we started thinking about other ways to use ThingLink and started creating some virtual library exhibitions, a few different types we'll share with you today. And then finally, this past summer, we found a new way to use the software tool to create an interactive library orientation. So we're going to go through these one at a time and start off with our virtual 360 tours, which is the first project that we created. We first captured our main library location, which is the Taylor Family Digital Library, and then moved out to our branch library locations. And then after that, more specialized spaces, such as our makerspace, our art galleries, and Lab Next. One of the nice things about these tours is that the tags are quick to update. So we could change the information in each information tag quite quickly to reflect our changing services throughout the pandemic. And also we can get statistics on the views. So I'm going to quickly just jump out and show you what our 360 tours look like. This is our main location in the TFDL. And each of these information tags, we can put in a little bit of further details in there. And the space is sort of allowed to, you can move around. We've linked out to some of our other library locations, and each tour is able to be curated in this way, and they're all connected through as a person would kind of interact with the space. So that's kind of a quick overview of our TFDL tour here.
Thank you, James. So let's have a look at the virtual library exhibitions that we created. We created several. We're going to look into two right now fairly quickly. So one of them was the De-Stress Virtual Music Exhibition. So what we created here is an exhibition that features a tagged virtual tour again, a music playlist that connects automatically to our collection where people can pull up the scores, and also included a video that was tagged also. If you're too lazy to go virtually through it, you can just sit back and relax. The second one that we created, and we're finishing this one right now, is a story about the only Canadian that met Ludwig van Beethoven, which is, I think, a really, really cool and interesting story. And we created some sort of more of a, I'll call it museum exhibition maybe, because we have material, primary and secondary resources, and you can go through chronologically through what happened and relive that story. And now we're gonna move on to the third part, and Alex is gonna continue.
Thanks, Mark. So Mark was just showing us some examples of some virtual exhibitions that you can create through the ThingLink tool. Every fall, one of the library's major student outreach events is our participation in the University of Calgary's Your First Year orientation program. And so with the move to a virtual orientation due to COVID-19, we really needed to create a more dynamic web presence to replace our usually very fun in-person booth activities. We started out with a LibGuide, but despite creative editing and formatting, we just couldn't kind of make it interactive enough. So seeing how Mark had created some of these virtual exhibitions, we thought we would test out ThingLink to create our own virtual orientation. Okay, so because ThingLink relies on a static image for its background, you easily just upload a JPEG. We are able to use the awesome visual branding that the first year orientation program had already created with a few minor edits. You can see here, which is kind of signposting to the really important tags. And editing the image was probably the most time-consuming part of the process, actually. Mark added a color gradient, added these text tags. And from there, we just took the information we already had in our LibGuide, in our orientations to create these tags with external links. So let's just do a quick tour. So for instance, here we have a link to our personal librarian program where visitors can link out to sign up for the program there. We have our tech corner over here where users can link out to LabNext, Makerspace again. And we also have incorporated the virtual 360 tour. And the nice thing about ThingLink is it's all integrated. So if you click there, it'll lead you right into the virtual tour, which will probably take a moment. And if you click home and back, it leads you right back there. So it's really, we love this graphic. We thought it was a really cute and fun way, an interactive way to get students engaging. And we've had some really great feedback from it as well. Just quickly, while we provided a link to the page for visitors to our virtual booth in the online orientation, we also featured a link on our library homepage. Many librarians have also started using it in their own first year orientation sessions instead of a PowerPoint. And really with the simplicity of ThingLink's platform, we have plans to incorporate it into our digital displays in our library building as well. So we've had great feedback, like I mentioned, from the orientation team, from other librarians and from users. And given how easy it is to edit, we'll likely continue using it in future years.
Great, thank you, Mark and Alex. So we have been interested in collecting some statistics on these different digital products, and ThingLink does that very well. Just to give you an example of some of the statistics, our 360 tours, we're getting up to around 3,000 views. You can see a graph on the right sort of showing how that maps over time and over busier times in the school year. The exhibitions range somewhere between 200 and 1,500 views, depending typically on how we promote them on the library website and how we promote them in other ways. And then our virtual orientation also has almost 3,000 views. So we've been able to leverage having a central spot on our library homepage for these different products, just to make sure that we can get them out to our users, and that's really helped. And definitely these statistics help show us that we are reaching new students and faculty and engaging with them and sort of sharing and highlighting all the important information we think they need to know as they get started in their studies. And then next steps for us, we've been really happy that we're able to use the platform in both for its kind of initial project, but in new ways. And that's been really fun to see it be really useful for these other projects. So we're going to continue to explore new ways that we can use the platform. We're looking into developing a new interactive orientation for new faculty that join the university. Also, as we mentioned before, potentially using it in our interactive displays, our larger displays around the library spaces. And there is also an interactive video feature, so that could be potentially useful for us in the future. We want to turn it over to you and ask, could you see your library using a tool like this, or are you using another type of software that does a similar thing? If so, we'd be really interested to chat and hear from you about that. And also, if you were thinking about using a tool like this, what ways would you use it? And we'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas around where this type of software can be used to engage with our library users. So thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in. Some of us will be here for questions, but you can also get in touch at our contact information there.
The title of my presentation is Screen Readers, Learning an Essential Technology for eLearning. I can be reached at mweiler@wlu.ca. For the blind, my presentation uses sounds to indicate slide transitions. A click means a slide has text only, and a piano note means a slide has an image, which I describe. The text on the screen echoes phrases of what I am saying and functions to hold visual attention. What are screen readers? Screen readers are software programs that convert computer content to text and then either to sound through a voice synthesizer or to braille on a braille display, and I'm considering screen readers in their capacity as voice synthesizers. Screen reader is an unfortunate name because they do not actually read the screen, rather they read a data structure in the computer's main memory that contains information about the interface. A user interface has multiple expressions. As this image shows, we can think of there being an abstract entity called the user interface. It has at least two expressions, the visual interface and an oral interface. And as they have the same parent, these interfaces share a lot in common, but each are different. Just because a vendor or developer says an interface is accessible doesn't necessarily mean it is. And even if it technically meets accessibility guidelines, the oral interface may not be user-friendly. What has the literature found? Sahib et al. Found that 15 screen reader users and 15 sighted participants used different techniques during each phase of searching. They emphasize that blind users have unique needs that should be intentionally designed for. Shiha et al., and that's spelt X-I-E, reported the findings of a comparison study of about 30 blind and 30 sighted participants using a digital library. They found that they used different orientation tactics. And after asking a blind student worker to document his experiences using library databases with JAWS, Mikalik and Ursavi said, "We are exploring ways of educating ourselves and our staff to be better versed in the use of JAWS." I would go a step further and suggest some sighted librarians need to be able to use screen readers with an eye mask on. Why? Well, let me explain how I came to that conclusion. I was helping a blind graduate student, and at the time I could use JAWS fairly well with my sight. I had reviewed a platform the student would be using, identified some obstacles, and was working with the vendor to remove them. But then the graduate student started using the platform, and she drew our attention to obstacles I had missed. How did I miss them, I thought. I concluded that I probably missed some of them because I had been using JAWS with my sight. But I realized I didn't have to use my sight, and I thought it was unfair to have to rely so much on blind users to point out obstacles if there was a way I could also detect some of them. So I decided to learn JAWS with an eye mask on. I've also come to realize it makes it easier to understand some of the needs and frustrations of blind users when expressed. So I have a challenge for library groups out there. I challenge each library group to support at least 2 sighted librarians to learn to use screen readers with an eye mask on. It will be challenging, like training for a marathon. But if some of us can do it together, like a running group, it will be easier. And maybe our local blind communities would like to be involved. So, I challenge you, Orbis Cascade Alliance. I challenge you, Council of Prairie and Pacific University Libraries. I challenge you, Ontario Council of University Libraries. I challenge you, Libraries of State Universities of New York. I challenge you, California State University Library Network. And I challenge you, Big Ten Academic Alliance. Let's train as a group. So, what are my training techniques? Well, first of all, you may hear things that are new to you. And some of you may be tempted to dismiss my suggestions with a quick judgment like that sounds too complicated or I don't have the time for that. But I'd like to suggest another approach. Take a deep breath. Remember, there is a powerful, creative, and unstoppable force in the world wrestling with and toppling dominant structures that want to exclude the disabled from our communities and our families. We may not be consciously aware of those victories or know the names of the disabled giants central in them, but those victories are having effects on our society whether we are aware of them or not. For example, who has heard of Donna Jodin? This is an image of a court ruling. Donna Jodin is a blind Canadian who, along with the Alliance for Equality of Blind Canadians, took the Government of Canada to court for their inaccessible websites. And the courts ruled that the government had failed to protect her equality rights under the Canadian Charter. Her victory will improve the lives of blind in Canada for generations. And the fallout of this case, and others like it in the United States and beyond, includes growing investment in web accessibility. And this is an example of how this force is clearing a trail for us and creating opportunities to collaborate with others traveling in the same direction. So rather than condemning this suggestion to the realm of the impossible, the longer we can pause, the more likely we will notice how the legacy of disabled advocates is already guiding and providing for us. So maybe it is possible. So here are 10 training tips to save sighted people time. 1. To better hear what Jaws was saying, I installed voices with different accents. I then modified the voice profile and created a special speech and sound scheme to make it easier to hear what Jaws was saying. Tip 2. As the image of my keyboard shows, I put textures on important shortcut keys. Tip 3. On occasions, I convert what Jaws is saying into a linear map to visualize the oral interface. And this is an image of the visual interface of a web page, and next to it is a visualization of the JAWS oral interface. I'd like to acknowledge Udo Enger-Walter, who helped me by developing a script to do this. Tip 4. I created an Excel spreadsheet with a worksheet for each application I use on a daily basis. As this image shows, there is a column for general task, then a column for specific subtask, then a column for a method to do the subtask. This image shows an example of Chrome. The general task is tab management. The subtask is move to next tab. The method is control plus page up. Tip 5. As this picture shows, I put this spreadsheet on the monitor of a laptop running JAWS. I connect a second monitor to my laptop and position it so the only way I can see the screen is if I turn my head sharply. I put the application I'm learning, such as Outlook, on this second monitor. This means I only have visual access to the spreadsheet with prompts for me doing tasks. If I need to turn my head to do something and look at the screen on the second monitor, then that's a task I don't know how to do and need to study and practice. Tip 6. This image of a piano symbolizes that practicing JAWS is like practicing the piano. With practice, something magical happens. The fingers remember what to do without thought. And this is when I know I can put the eye mask on. Tip 7. During this training, as a matter of ethics, I think we should be reporting obstacles we encounter while practicing. I've submitted over 100 accessibility issues to vendors, publishers, and websites. Tip 8. I treat it a bit like a computer role-playing game where I go on quests to learn a task or build up a JAWS skill. And this isn't meant to trivialize learning an essential tool, but rather I'm trying to leverage the methods developed in gaming culture to organize all the learning activity that's going on. And it also keeps it a little interesting. Tip 9. I document the delightful aspects of using screen readers without sight, but it's because it is important we talk about it. There's lots of wonderful parts of using JAWS and screen readers without sight. Access keys and shortcut keys, for example, are awesome. Tip 10. Humility is important. We need to recognize we can take off the mask. We bring a life of sight to the tasks of using the oral interface, and we won't know the riches that blind lives bring to the user experience. What parts are the most frustrating? Learning from blind communities is very important. In conclusion, my thesis is that we will be better able to teach users how to access and contribute to our cultural heritage if members of our profession learn to use screen readers with an eye mask on. Therefore, it is worth the initial effort. It will be hardest for those who go first, but let's make it easier for those who follow. I want to close by acknowledging some folks may have found this recording long after I've presented it. To any blind listeners thinking about becoming a librarian, there are obstacles in our profession. but librarianship needs blind librarians, not just for the sorts of roles I'm describing here, but in all capacities. And for any blind or partially sighted young person thinking about university or already in university, you are going to find obstacles with libraries while we continue to figure things out. But folks are trying. Please continue to follow your inner compass guiding you to the treasures put in the world just for you. There have been and continue to be blind leaders who are clearing the path for you and the students who are following you. And what should you do when you find an obstacle or think something's not quite right in the library? Reach out to the library and ask to talk with someone who is looking for obstacles. Finally, what kind of librarian would I be if I didn't point out to everyone a reference? I encourage you all to listen to the podcast Triple Vision, which is about the history and future of blindness in Canada. Thank you very much.
Hi there. Welcome to Moving a Library Class Online in a Pinch. Easy H5 Peasy. My name is Lydia Thorne, and I'm the Health Sciences Librarian at Ontario Tech University and Durham College. Today I'm here to talk to you about a neat tool called H5P and how you can use H5P to create interactive class recordings. But before I get to this, you need some background information. How did I come across this tool and come to use it for online learning? It all started last December. Every winter, I teach a library class for Health Sciences 3910, Research Methods for Healthcare Professionals, that is taken by all third-year Health Sciences undergraduate students at Ontario Tech. In this course, students are asked to complete an assignment where they must come up with a research question based on the PICO format, search for 5 journal articles in PubMed, and provide their search strategy. Previously, in this synchronous in-person class, I cover the difference between primary and secondary sources, finding the best available evidence, and steps in the literature search process. Then COVID-19 hit. Last December, 2 weeks before we closed down for the holidays, I received a request from one of the faculty members who teaches this course. They said that they were planning to teach this course totally asynchronously next term, and asked me if I could do a recording. Now, I've done the standard class recording before, and honestly, I pity the students who have been asked to watch them. They were long, boring, and lacked the active learning and activities that I include in all my synchronous classes. I found myself wondering, is there any way that I can make this class recording interactive and keep students engaged? So I did some research and decided to try out a platform called H5P. H5P is a program that is used for the creating, sharing, and reuse of HTML5 content and applications. With H5P, users can create several interactive components, such as quizzes, presentations, videos, and games, independently or in collaboration with others. Once completed, a code allows users to directly embed their work into different learning management systems and websites. You can access the software for free through h5p.org or through the eCampus Ontario H5P Studio, provided that you are from a member institution. The eCampus Ontario H5P Studio is a collaborative program where users can choose to share their creations within a central catalog. This allows others to embed the activity directly or copy it as a template to create their own interactive activity. For this project, I wanted the content that I created to be easily findable and reusable by others, so I chose to use the eCampus Ontario H5P Studio. One of the content types available through H5P is called interactive video. Using this tool, you can easily add interactive elements to any video, such as bookmarks and links. You can also add various types of questions, such as fill in the blank, multiple choice, matching, and more, so that students can check their knowledge as they watch the video. The video can then be embedded on a course website or in a learning management system. But before using H5P, I needed to create my class recording. There were a number of steps involved in this process. First, I worked with a faculty member to go over the assignments for the course and drafted some learning outcomes and an outline. Very similar to what I would do for any in-person class. Then I developed the content and the slides, wrote the script, and decided what activities I would use for active learning. I ended up breaking the recording into 5 videos that covered different stages of the literature search process. Next up, recording. I decided to use Camtasia to record over the slides and for the voice narration, because I was crunched for time and I was already familiar with the software, having used it previously for class recordings. We're lucky to have access to Camtasia through Ontario Tech, but you could use another option here, such as Microsoft PowerPoint. After I had finished the recordings, I uploaded the MP4 files to YouTube and added automatic captions to each video using YouTube Studio. This whole process took about 1.5 weeks to complete. Now that I had the videos, I could use H5P interactive video to add quizzes and activities based on those learning outcomes. And here's what I came up with. 5 short videos, all published with a CC BY NC 4.0 Creative Commons license. Each video covers different content. Part 1 is on finding the best available evidence and the differences between primary and secondary sources. Part 2 covers tips and tricks for developing a database search strategy. Part 3 is on how to select a database based on a topic or a research question. Part 4 looks at the differences between keyword and subject heading searching and includes a search demo of PubMed. And lastly, Part 5 covers how to translate a search strategy to other databases and best practices for managing search results. All of the videos include interactive elements. Here's an example of a multiple choice question, which has students pick out the main concepts in a research question. Here's another example of a fill-in-the-blanks question, where students are asked to put all of the parts in order to form a search string. Much, much better than having students listen to a boring 1-hour recording of my voice. Since I published the videos in the studio last December, they've been used by more than 500 students in various sections of Health Sciences 3910, and they've had more than 1,500 views. Going forwards, this course will be offered both synchronously and asynchronously, so I'll get lots of use out of the videos. While H5P is a great, intuitive, open-source tool that can be used to move a library class online in a pinch, like I did last December, there are a few things that I learned throughout this project. The first is how important it is to chunk your content. While the videos that I created are short, and mostly 2 to 3 minutes in length, the 4th video that covers PubMed is a bit longer. In hindsight, I wish I'd made that video into 2 videos. We know that our viewers have short attention spans and may tune out if they're asked to watch a longer video. The second thing that I learned is to take some time, even when in a time crunch, to figure out how H5P can be used in your learning management system. While I'm able to embed the videos in our LMS at Ontario Tech, we don't have the option here yet to have students complete the activities for grades. Hopefully we'll have that capability someday. The third thing that I would recommend is to design your video with future reuse in mind. If I was starting over again, I wouldn't put a course code on the slides or mention a specific course assignment. Doing so has limited when and how I've been able to reuse the content for other classes. Including these specifics also makes the content less reusable for other people. The same goes with any hardcore branding on your slides. Think of how your content will be reused as you design it, not as an afterthought. And last but not least, make sure to find a way to incorporate user feedback. I'm currently working on adding a Google form link to the recordings, but I didn't have this form when the videos were used last year, which was a lost opportunity to get user feedback and to make any changes to the videos as necessary. If you want to test out H5P, feel free to use this link on my slide to try one of the class activities on your own. That's all I have for today's showcase presentation. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out by email or to find me on Twitter. I'm always happy to chat about H5P and any new technologies that can be used for online teaching and learning.